Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in a new video. So, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and let's get started. Landlords of Reddit, tell us about your worst tenants. When a family in need of housing approached us through our childcare, we agreed to rent to them. We were foolish about it due to a need to move, and this was 2008 when you couldn't sell a house without taking a huge bath, so we were pretty desperate. After about 8 months, when I was back in town, I did an inspection and observed a few things, including that they had painted several rooms but hadn't made a big deal out of it. The rent payments thereafter began to be late, then kinda not coming. Attempting to reach a compromise, I warned them that failure to notify me if they would be late would result in their eviction. Had to kick them out. Oh my, when we received the keys back, they began by stealing our stove. They painted every room primarily in dark hues without using any masking or obvious painting techniques. I had to redo the woodwork and ceiling since paint got all over them. Additionally, they nailed imitation ivy vines all over the house, which required hours of extracting staples and patching up little holes. They applied some sort of resin over my butcher block countertop, destroying the purpose of the material. They also left behind trash everywhere, including a home gym and a pool table. I got a 30 cubic yard dumpster and had to make several trips in a truck after that was filled up. More terrible was the backyard. They had removed timber from the deck for what purposes? They used chipboard to construct a shed on the side of the deck. The chipboard so soggy and heavy that they had to drill a hole in the deck to support it. Who knows why, but they had heaps of scrap wood in the backyard. In addition to all of that, the water and power were turned off when we got back to the house due to unpaid bills. The water bill was $2,000 they owed. They must have spent hours watering the yard every day all summer long because they were at least 6 months behind. I gave them a charge for around $7,500 for maintenance, garbage removal, overdue electricity, cleaning, and repairs. Of course, they didn't pay, so I gave it to a real estate-focused debt collecting agency. They were sued, and since they didn't bother to appear in court, we won with ease. They had to pay us every last dime, and they paid us every last cent. When a friendly neighbor of mine got married, his wife decided she wanted a bigger home, so they rented out their old house, which wasn't small. A woman moves in with her 3 children. This house had amazing landscaping, a nice deck, and other features. When he performed his routine inspections, he didn't really see any damage aside than a messy kitchen and a lack of dusting. He had to remind them to keep an eye on the candles because one had discolored a wall. They vacate after failing to extend their lease. The excitement starts here. Now that the ceiling fans are off, he can see the foot-long streamers that are hanging from them. The carpets, which had been covered by their furniture, are stained all over. The stove's burners were so clogged with debris that only one was functional and the oven was a burnt-over wreck. The children were swinging on 2-bedroom doors, making them impossible to shut. The inspection business never informed him that they didn't have full access during inspections, which led to the house having termites as well. The mom mistakenly believed that one of her children had damaged the wall, but termites were to blame. The tiny bathroom under the stairs was the greatest. Every time he had came by, a child had been using the restroom, but he had never noticed. It turned out that one of the kids had blocked the toilet in their rented unit at some point. Even worse, the wood floor inside had completely decayed and bowed. It was still completely full. So imagine this. She would have one of her children go sit in there while he was over for inspection. True to form, they argued over the deposit, but he had so many pictures that he simply told them, let's go to court. Of course, he won and the tenant had to repair all the damage. I'm not sure how much it ended up costing. The property was actually purchased from him by the fellow renter. Renter here with insane property owner. In the scorching hot Sacramento, California, I once rented a room in a 2-bedroom home. My partner opted to rent the other room because the landlord was trying to rent it. Landlord did not rent us the house because he wanted access to the garage/backyard. 1, the BF's tools started disappearing from the garage. 2, without the necessary permits, the landlord begins to demolish the garage in order to convert it into another room. 3, Rotortiller's gorgeous backyard with 3 mature trees for shade, a hedge, and a few bushes, including blackberries. 4, plants, pumpkins, people, pumpkins. Currently, a landlord in California must provide 24 to 48 hours notice before entering a property. 5, we return from vacation to find sheets in the bedroom have been moved and food missing from the pantry. 6, on a hot day, landlord unlocks the door and enters when we are simply wearing our underwear and topless. I scream, run to the bedroom, BF yells. We get a professional to clean house and move out. 7, he won't refund the cleaning deposit we paid. 8, we file our taxes that include both our renter's tax credit and asked for rental proof. 9, the landlord had made the rented property appear on his tax returns as his primary residence. Just keep in mind that the garage is the only other room. 10, we informed the IRS and the city about his dishonesty and lack of permits. 11, bank mysteriously lists a house for sale. Calm as a bee. The broker to the last house we rented commented on how in 5 years of living there, she was shocked that we had left the house as is. Here is her horror story. She used the money she inherited to pay for renovations on a pretty magnificent property, one of those $1 million residencies. She listed it for $4,000 a month and received numerous questions about it, those who are wealthy. Now, we find that maturity or responsibility have nothing to do with age. She rented it out to some 40-something-year-old since she disliked renting to younger people because she believed they were never trustworthy. The woman was an ER doctor and the man worked as a tax lawyer. Just because you have a PhD doesn't guarantee you have survival or social skills, as my mother used to say. They damaged the front and dinged all the walls with their driving in less than 6 months of renting this property. The garage door was dented, killed every plant, threw some large catered dinner parties without doing the dishes, missed paying the electricity payment, missed paying the water bill, monthly rent was never paid in full, the dishwasher was destroyed, ruined the AC system, the washer dryer was destroyed, they refused to vacuum so they tore up the carpets, black paint covered the white walls, scum was all over the shower, they were the type to buy more clothing without washing it, so there was laundry everywhere, had a dog that was against the lease, whatever it was, it happened. They claimed that a custom home was being built at the time of the controversy and that it had already been completed. As a result, they requested a break in their lease and a refund of their security deposit. She refused them for clear reasons. After that, something happened to their home and they requested a free extension of 3 months to make up for their hardships. The down payment on this house had left them in a bind. She told them no and to leave at the end of their lease. They stayed for 3 further weeks and she had already begun the eviction proceedings. Destroyed whatever wasn't destroyed because she was being so unfair and unreasonable. She went to court, all of the damages were recorded, and I don't know the exact amount, but these tenants had to sell their cars and some other things to pay for all the damages. Have you ever taken legal action against your HOA? People in our old neighborhood were upset because their property value was reduced because of some clutter in the front yard. When they complained to the HOA, they were told there was nothing they could do because nothing in their yard violated HOA rules. The residents then filed a lawsuit against the HOA manager, who soon resigned since they could no longer put up with the residents' antics. The original complaints then litigated their way to the top of the HOA and began fining everyone in the community for anything they could think of. A year later, the value of their home had increased to the point that they could sell it, at which point they vanished. My wife and I moved into a house in a sizable neighborhood regulated by an HOA 2 years ago. It turns out that the man we purchased the house from was trying to flee from a big power battle with overtly racist overtones that has nearly driven the entire organization to bankruptcy and court costs. An African-American former Marine who lived in the neighborhood spoke out for some of the homeowners who were being harassed by the HOA over minor infractions relating to yard maintenance, etc., which upsets the previous owner who was on the board. In the end, a few members of his camp filed a lawsuit against the neighbor who had defied the board. They filed a lawsuit on him on behalf of the board rather than against him personally and lost. Legal and court costs amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars have essentially wiped away any money the HOA had. It's a total disaster. There's a woman who simply shouts during sessions and won't leave when asked to. People simply don't understand how they're responsible for all of this money when they didn't consent to be involved in a case. The beginning of it all can be traced back to the Black Marine's attempt to run for the board and defend the interests of the minorities harmed by the HOA, but the higher-ups rejected his proposal. Since he follows the story like a depressing court drama, I'm sure my dad could go into greater detail. As soon as we find a place that works for us, we're thinking about selling and moving. Around 20 years ago, when the area was still being built out of farmland, my parents were among the first people to move into it. When I was a child, my parents made the decision to construct a shed, which the HOA quickly objected against. Remember that this shed wasn't a standalone structure in the center of their yard, rather it was linked to the side of the home and meticulously painted and trimmed to match the house. My parents actually went to court over it, and as my dad tells it, the judge drove by to see the shed himself and has to do so 3 times because he couldn't even find the D-thing. Nevertheless, I'm confident that there were no restrictions on sheds and that the HOA was only raising a fuss because they didn't like my parents, which is somewhat justified. So, several years pass and my parents are still fighting this case when a neighbor almost directly behind my parents end up building a guest house, and they paint it pink. Finally, the lawsuit was dropped because it was obvious that there were some unfair comparisons being made, and only then did the HOA resolve to forbid the construction of any further distinct housing buildings. Never going into an HOA again. Everyone on my block condemned their theft of other people's money and self-indulgence. They unexpectedly blocked our road with a locked gate. They gave the police department false information by claiming to have a court order allowing the stay. My street successfully sued them and won. They had to take down the gate, shell out more than $86,000 for our legal expenses, cede the road to the residents of our street, and kick the whole neighborhood out of their tax district. They still owe us money to maintain our water drainage system. The contractor who serves as the president of this taxing district is the one who initiated the vandalism of our homes, automobiles, and roads in revenge. Since there was no footage to prove that it was them, we were powerless to take any action for a very long time. But at a secret meeting without board members, my neighbors and I decided to secretly install the most inconspicuous surveillance cameras to catch them, and now it's finally happening. We spent a week collecting footage of their vandalism and filed a collusive lawsuit against them. We won, of course. The fines they had to pay were extremely high, and because of all this, we now have a very good reason to overthrow the current HOA board. We're gonna do it. My girlfriend's family story. A federal government employee family moved into the home next to them this past spring. The family rented out the home to pay the mortgage while they were in Colombia working at an embassy in the summer and fall. Well, somebody complained, and the HOA tried to reinstate as to essentially ban renting and then sued this family. Short version, the HOA is not reinstated, the renters remain, the rest of the HOA is sued by this family, apart from my girlfriend's parents who couldn't care less about the renters, and the family is currently preparing to spend 8 months in Liberia. Justice. My former roommate installed a satellite dish on the exterior of our house, and we get a notification that it has to be taken down. We provided the HOA with the proof that it was against the law to instruct us where to install the dish because it was constricting the airwaves as well as FCC law. The notification ceased. Years later, while I'm out of the country, they subpoena me to appear in court. By chance, my neighbor read the notification and told me about it. I had 3 days notice for my court appearance, so I took a flight back home and started investigating. At the time, I'd been spending about half the year on the other side of the country, leaving my home empty or sublet, so I'd set up a bank account for my dues, and they were just auto-deducted while I was away. Turns out, they'd taken about $1,000 from that account to pay for the fine of the dish. Additionally, they forged my signature on a certified letter addressing the issue, and I could provide proof that I wasn't at home to receive the letter and, as a result, couldn't have signed it. We countersued them. Because they were aware of our impending departure, they continued postponing the hearings in an effort to get us to give up, dismiss our lawsuit, and move on. We were determined to take the matter through to its just conclusion despite the ongoing delays and attempts to demoralize us. The trial's scheduled date finally arrives. Our attorney presented strong proof of fraud, forgeries, and the theft of HOA money. It was a powerful argument that left no room for doubt. The HOA had miscalculated our tenacity and the force of our arguments. It became clear throughout the trial. The moment the description's full splendor was revealed, their defense broke down. The judge came to a decision. The HOA was ordered to not only repay the misappropriated $1,000, but also imposed additional fines for its fraudulent actions. The HOA's management was subjected to legal repercussions as a result of its unethical actions, which damaged the HOA's reputation. Our triumph served as a lesson in accountability and fairness, in addition to being a personal accomplishment. Over time, the board members quit, and a new board was established. I hope they won't act the same way that the previous HOA board did. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and the comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.